what strikes me about this from literally the first scene is you take a real world event that seems like it shouldn't even be part of the real world, right? Was that always your starting point, or were you looking for something that felt stranger than fiction to illustrate how you were going to like tackle race relations through Watchmen?
I think one of the things about the original Watchmen that I always loved was I didn't know where actual history ended and fictional history began. And there were so many things in the original book that actually happened. So if there were, if there was a police strike in '77, I'd be like, was there? No, they made that up. And so when I first heard about the massacre of Black Wall Street in Tulsa of '21, I couldn't believe that I was a grown adult and I'd never ever heard about it before. And the more I researched it, the more I was just shocked and embarrassed that I didn't know anything, but at the same time was sort of like, well, I'm in a position now to potentially put this in a piece of popular entertainment and inform people about this actual historical event, but I can't be exploitative about it. It needs to be important. And the other thing about what happened in Tulsa 21, it felt like it was very similar to what the way that a lot of superhero stories or comic book storytelling starts, which is it's the destruction of the world that you know. This felt a lot like Krypton or Bruce Wayne losing his parents. And so to take an actual real world historical event and use that iconic sort of mythological comic book storytelling at the same time, because if you're giving an audience vegetables, they'll push them to the side of the plate. It has to feel like it's as delicious as the rest of the meal. So, and more importantly, I think the more that the season goes on, the more pivotal we'll see Tulsa 21 was to our storytelling.
The thing that strikes me about Cal is there's never really been like a real POV character in Watchmen, right? And usually in superhero stories, if somebody's the POV character, they're always like, oh man, this world is so crazy. Cal is so serene and just kind of takes everything as it comes, you know? So do you think the fact that you weren't overly familiar with that world kind of helped you with Cal's kind of matter-of-fact dealings with the extraordinary events around him?
You know, not necessarily. I think by the time I stepped into Cal, I had made myself very familiar with the world. But Cal, from the first episode, he was an opportunity to be, I said, well, who is this guy? And he was a stay-at-home dad. He was a husband. He was, just me bringing my frame to it. I'm physically fit, and he was a guy who we knew that was very good at the position that he was in, and that he was solid. He was confident in the person that he was. And so I said, okay, well, I'm going to take this opportunity to build up this character who is a little bit unconventional from what we see in him, from how we see husbands, on television and men, and say, okay, well, I'm going to put him in there and let him be a rock, let him be, something sturdy that Angela can come home to. She brings her chaos, and I offer myself, for the calm. But we also see in the first episode, when he's handed the gun, and she says, if anybody comes to this thing, you do this, and he says, okay. So we know that he's also equipped to do more than what we see him doing at the same time. And I kind of use those rules to build up a very, very sturdy, trustworthy character and move forward from there.
One of my favorite things that the show does is it's a lot like the book in the way it drip feeds information about the characters from episode to episode. Nobody gets an origin story in episode 1, right? So how did you kind of decide how you were going to reveal the different facets of these characters from episode to episode? Like, what felt appropriate to you? We still haven't learned why Sister Night wears a nun costume, for example.
We will. I think that I love mystery storytelling, and I've experimented many times over the course of my career with delayed gratification. Sometimes turns out too long. Sometimes turns out too soon. And so you're constantly trying to find the just right. I hope that by feel now we've sort of figured out. The good news is there's 9 episodes of this season of Watchmen. And by the 9th episode, you're going to get the resolution to every single question that the show asks that's important to us as storytellers without sort of frustrating the audience. I've definitely learned my lesson in that arena. And so build up an appetite and then serve up a delicious meal. That's my hope.